Would you consider yourself a corporate mystic? And what does that even mean? Mystic, let alone a corporate mystic. I am going to get into that today because I got this idea listening to some podcasts recently about mysticism. And it occurred to me, well, couldn't you be a mystic, but just in a corporate environment? And as a leader, what does that mean for you? How does that differ than if you weren't really tapped into that? So let's get into it. This is an interesting discussion and topic because it really bridges the gap between the corporate world, I think, and being aligned and in sync, being aware of not just yourself, not just others, but the greater whole, meaning the universe, spirit, the divine, God, everybody, all that you know of. And we don't talk about it enough. And I think it's coming where this will be the norm. We're not there yet, but conversations like this help. All right, let's talk corporate mystics. So first of all, I want to define, what does that mean? When you think of the word mystic, just itself, mystic, what comes up for you? Are you wearing, do you imagine someone wearing robes, long robes? Maybe there's this wise old sage in front of you, male or female. Maybe there's not even a gender. It's just this all-knowingness. Yeah, it could be anything like that. But that's, I think, more of our typical imaginary things that we can come up with. I don't think being a mystic is about the clothes per se, but I think we can tend to think of that. Maybe it's folklore, Lord of the Rings style kind of stuff. And that's all fun and good. But I think it's not about the clothes that you're wearing, especially if you're a leader at work and you're not going to be wearing that kind of thing, but you just show up in everyday clothes. They could be wearing anything. And it's more about your energy. Everything is energy. We are all made up of energy. The world is made up of energy. The table you are sitting at, the chair you are on, the shoes you are wearing, and the body you're in, all are made of energy, right? Literally atoms vibrating against each other. This is science. This has now been recorded, and we can calibrate each other and different ways of ourselves to be a different energy. So I believe mysticism is more about an energy that you contain and you respond with. In addition, a couple of definitions I came across while looking on the internet, doing some research. I just want to share these with you because I think that they're all good. And then you can come up with your own definition because I think there's variations. In general, a mystic is extra sensitive and becomes more awake and aware of what is received and transmitted using those powers that are there, using those insights for the greater good, right? So another definition I heard is that you can see without eyes, you hear without ears, and so on and so forth. So you have the five senses, but it almost goes beyond that to a higher vantage point. So you can see oneness maybe within the entire meeting that you're running, or walking down the street, you can see how people are connected to each other. Do you ever sense that? Do you feel like that's something that occurs to you every now and then? If you have experienced that, I would say that's a mystic quality. And congrats, that's a big deal. And it really translates well, I think, as a leader at work. And I'll get into that. The other thing that comes up for me with mysticism and being a mystic is the idea of also being an empath, right? What is that? What is an empath? And we hear this a lot too, but I think mystics have a certain quality of being empathic, where you're more sensitive than what's considered normal in the world. And it might not even be socially acceptable. So for example, the example comes to mind is you cry a lot. Maybe you were teased as a kid on the bus and your emotions were held on your sleeve. You wore them on your sleeve. And it's not okay to be that way for whatever reason. Maybe there was some bullying. Maybe you were told not to be so weak. It was kind of constrained as weakness. And I have a great episode in the podcast from a highly sensitive person who talks about this. I'm escaping the number and the name of this right now, but I'll put it in the show notes. Either way, being an empath, I think, is a quality where you can lean into that as a mystic, because we've been told so long that that's not acceptable, but it's helpful. And if we lean into that, then we can do something different. Maybe we see things and can communicate in ways that help others be seen and heard more. Maybe it's a walk outside. Maybe you take a break. You go out for a run, you meditate, you sing your favorite song or do a little dance. I think all of those are really good ways to just be curious about that empathy that you might have, and just being a mystic, being an empath, if that is you. I don't think everyone has that if this is a mystic, but I think it's related, because again, a mystic is someone who uses their super qualities around understanding and awareness for the greatest good. And they don't necessarily rely on the tangible data, things that are seen, heard, touched, smelled, tasted, but they can infer things maybe with their own gut sense. And a couple other of these definitions. So here we go, just a few more, right? So maybe you're tuned into a greater sense of reality. Think of these two as a leader, because I think these really relate. We don't really talk about them in the same way, but what if you were tuned into a greater sense of reality at work? So you could actually read the room and know what's going on another level, other than just what was said. You have a larger vision for what is true. So there's this genuine, authentic truth that you're striving for. And your own inner wisdom is helping you understand that. So you're relying on your own senses, but also like your interpretation of what's going on. Maybe you can even see things from different perspectives. I think all of this makes a lot of sense. And that awareness can be expanded through not just senses, but things we can't see, like I was mentioning, through your own awareness. And there's an interconnection that you feel. Maybe there's unspoken words, you understand what those were, and you feel a sense of gratitude coming from someone. These are things that happen a lot, and maybe you're just listening to this and like, yeah, like that's no big deal. I just do that all the time. Awesome. I would call you a corporate mystic, because you're probably using those qualities more than you think at work. And that's a good thing. And I think we have a lot of individuals who would possess these qualities, where the mystic is really the person where you're embracing that possibility of what's so, feeling interconnected, and you're living and leading through that generality of knowingness. And so I ask you, how does that resonate with you? Does that qualify as you? I know when I worked at Google, we had a group, we had a mailing list called Mystics at google.com. It was just opt in, whoever wanted to do that. And we would have some funky emails going around, where maybe we would have sound healing baths that came in and had volunteers. There was someone who wanted to teach other mystical type qualities, probably something along the lines of tarot cards. I don't even remember. But it was always interesting discussions, and you don't need to have an email, but I just thought that was so interesting, because it made me think about, we have a lot of mystics, I think, in the corporate world, and yet we're not really wearing that on our sleeve because it's not the norm. But you can use these to your advantage as a leader. And that's what I would like to kind of share today in this bigger topic, where as a corporate leader, you can leverage your inner corporate mystic, your inner mystic, to see things differently, to respond in ways that might be serving. And the key denominating factor here is that it's for this bigger, greater good that you can feel connected to. Isn't that cool? I imagine if we all knew that, walking around at work thinking we're all interconnected. Imagine if we knew that anywhere, if we're talking about the political landscape, or picking people up from daycare and carpool and obliging by the rules of regulation for traffic. These things that I laugh because they seem really manic and not necessarily helpful, but that's the whole idea, is that we know as mystics that this is interconnectedness at its best. And so what do you do if you are a corporate mystic? What do you do? Well, you could do a bunch of different things, and I have a few ideas here. And I'm curious if you resonate and really would identify as one. That's awesome. And you can put your stake in the ground and claim that for yourself, because if we're not really knowing who we are and claiming that, then there's a part of us that we've forgotten, that we've avoided or feel like we cannot own. And for whatever reason, it might be a fear of judgment or denial, thinking that's not really me. And I just invite you to be in the inquiry of it. I think this is the key, is to get curious. So I think that's the next step. So if you know and identify as one of these mystics, think about it like, what could you do and know and think differently about it? So now that you know that, maybe you've already known it, which is awesome. You can be understanding to say, well, what would that mean for me now that I work in this company and lead these people or run this example? Because we can lead in a very nourishing way when we have these insights. And if you're able to even address the big universal question, who am I? Then I think that you're onto something, because you could say something super generic, which is very, 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 very true. So my name is Rachel, and I work for myself, and I have a home office, live in Florida, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, that's on the topical level, but going deeper than the surface, who am I? I am a being interconnected with the universe, with the divine, and it doesn't just stop on my personal life. I use these understandings to benefit the corporate life. We just don't talk about them much, but I invite you to think about this, because the more that we can accept ourselves in this arena, the more we normalize it, and the more I think we're going to be better off. I think when I put this topic down on my podcast list, literally, it might have even been a year ago. And I'm only recording it now out of thinking like, well, I was kind of in denial. I was kind of avoiding it because I think this topic historically scares me. And if it scares me, my guess is it scares a lot of people. Marrying the topic of leadership and mystic, what? That makes no sense, or that's la la land or woo woo land. And the reality is, no, it's science. We are, again, energy. All I'm saying is, what if you used your interconnection for the greater purpose, for your greater meaning with everything you do, including leadership? I don't know about you, but I feel more motivated. I'm more inspired. I get excited more because that's bringing my whole self to work. And so if you're one of these folks like me and really would say, yeah, I think I am a mystic in some capacity. You don't have to get hung up on the word. You could call yourself a, you could say empath, like we talked about, or you could say, I'm a spiritual person. You could say, I am, I am one with the divine. You could say, I'm not sure yet, I'm working on it, but be in the inquiry of it. I think it would serve anyone who's in that space. And just allow yourself to know that your beingness, and this is the whole point of pause, by the way, is that it's just your beingness. And when you are allowing yourself to just be, you're not caught up with the identity of you, right? The worker, the exec, the founder, the entrepreneur, the athlete, whomever you are, you have this greater experience of connecting with that bigger source. You're not a separate individual. You're in this zone of your spirit, which is connected to infinity and beyond, in the wise words of Buzz Lightyear, right? So I'm curious, what are you getting from this? There's really, I think, a couple things that I'm walking away with. If we are okay with our truths, if you're knowing the source of who you are, which my guess is, maybe you sense that you've got a soul, it's there, it's an essence. So that your essence gets to exist and be in any setting you are in. Maybe it's leadership at work. Maybe it's at home cooking dinner. Maybe it's watching your favorite show with your partner. You get to be both. You get to be both. And I think when we check that inner wisdom or mystic at the door, we don't feel as fulfilled. We feel a little bit like we chipped away part of ourselves, like we're not whole. And we might not even realize we're doing it. We just might feel sad, or like something's missing, like you're lost at work. And that's not every time, but I think there's a link there. So so for you to be in this space and applying mysticism to work, I mean, again, all we're saying is you have a keen sense of universal truth. That might mean you can read the room like a pro, and you're withholding judgment because you're objective. You're noticing what's so without bias. That is a huge skill, and I would say that's a mystic skill. And it's you in a knowingness through your beingness. How cool is that, you guys? I don't even know, but you're a mystic and you didn't even know it. And my goal in today is you walk away knowing that it's okay for us to accept this. We can't talk about it and we can't embrace it at work until we are accepting of ourselves, which might mean maybe we don't call ourselves mystics. You don't call yourself, although we had that group at my old job and it was kind of fun. But you could be corporate wise sages. I don't know. I'm making that up. Chip Conley's work is coming to mind as the wise wise elders, as he likes to say. And you don't even have to be an elder. I think that's where it is. This type of knowingness is not about age. It's not about your job title. It's not about where you live. It's your beingness. So are you seeing what I'm sharing? Are you picking up what I'm laying down? I feel like it's a conversation to think about for yourself. And maybe you journal on it and you just choose the idea of acceptance, because that's the thing. You have a choice. Are you going to choose to say, I'm going to accept my inner beingness, my knowingness? Maybe maybe you call it a mystic, maybe you don't. It doesn't need to be called that. Labels are great. Our brains love labels, but they also have a lot of judgment with those labels. So call it whatever you want. I don't care. I think it's kind of fun to be a corporate mystic. It's just not necessarily something I think that is talked about openly. And I want to change that. That's the idea. The more people kind of talk about it, the more we can accept it. And we can just make it normalized. We can talk about things like breath work at work, or which helps to heal trauma, so we can be more whole as a being, right? Do you see how this is connected? My intention and hope is that it doesn't seem like some really far-fetched, out there, crazy woo-woo thing. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's a real, tangible, scientific knowingness that we can be and we can do together. And we need to know, I think, we need to remember that we're connected to a bigger purpose, that we're here on this earth for whatever we came here to do. And that includes being a leader usually, because if we're at a job, that's part of our world. And I just invite you to be in that inquiry. And if you're interested to call out, shout out, claim your mysticism as a corporate mystic, then I say hallelujah, heck yeah, and go for it. Let me know. I would love to know if you feel like that's you. And I could just tell you, I know for a fact, working at a 30,000 person company, there were several hundred people, if not even more than that. Maybe there were thousands on that email list, because there's a lot of us, I think, in the corporate world that know we're here for great work. It might be on the job. It might be in the family. It's all good. It gets to be here. But why would you not accept that from the workplace and just own it? It's so cool, isn't it? I love that you're thinking about this. Thank you for listening. If this topic resonates with you, please share, let me know, drop me a line. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say and would love to get any feedback. If you like this topic, I'm happy to maybe go into a little deeper dive. But for now, thanks for listening, and know that you are on your way, my friend. You're on your way from, as a corporate leader, to also a corporate mystic. And that is so exciting. And I'm so proud of you. Bye-bye.